It is 29 March. It's Sunday. I'm Charlie Garrett, and this is the CG Prophecy Report. Hochulized Ineptitude. That and a lot of other things to go over on today's report. That is a coined word, Hochulized. We've got the governor of New York, Hochul, and she's vocalized her ineptitude. So there you go, Hochulized Ineptitude. Got some news from Israel. From the Middle East Eye, Netanyahu, Israel. I'm really disturbed by reading this. Now, people are all over the news this week. Isn't that great? And I think he said it about 8 days ago, and I've been stewing over it all 8 days. People think this is a good thing. It is a terrible thing. Netanyahu, Israel will reach the kingdom and make it to Messiah's return. Prime Minister Netanyahu said that Israel will reach the kingdom and make it until the Messiah's return. He's not speaking about Jesus. Netanyahu said Israel is achieving unprecedented gains in the war with Iran and that the campaign is reshaping the Middle East, adding that Israel's status as a rising superpower was strengthening. Okay, this is a thing that is happening in Israel. We've got an Israeli Jew that attends with us, not here right now, but he will tell you that the biggest problem with Israel, and he's saying this himself, I'm not saying this, he's saying this, okay? He's saying it is pride, self-pride. We will prevail. We will do this. It's very, very infrequently that you will hear them say the Lord, and when they do, it is as a secondary. It's like us when we say, well, God is with us in this. Everybody thinks God is on their side when you're in a conflict, always. But this is not a good thing, okay? They need to know Jesus. Netanyahu also warned Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, and Hezbollah chief Naim Qassem, saying that he would not issue life insurance to either leader. He said Israel's objectives includes creating conditions that could lead to the end of Iran's current government, adding that the decision ultimately lies with the Iranian people. If Israel had recognized their society, they would not be going through what they've been going through for 2,000 years, and they would not go through the tribulation period. And 2/3 of them would not die, according to Zechariah. Okay, that is all coming on them because of the rejection of the true Messiah. In John, Jesus says to the people of Israel, I come in my Father's name and you don't accept me, and someone will come in my name and you will accept him. Okay, this is the state of Israel, and people are all applauding Netanyahu for his bravery and standing up and saying that the Messiah, blah, blah, blah. Jesus is the Messiah. He is Israel's Messiah. There is no other. He gave his life for Israel. They turned him down. They will accept him someday, but in the meantime, I'm almost in tears saying this because it is such a sad thing that has happened to the people of Israel. And it's self-inflicted, but, you want to keep them in prayer because they need Jesus. From all Israel, UN Security Council condemns Iran's attacks on Gulf states. Good. I'm glad that happened. Oh, but not on Israel. A stark example of anti-Israel bias. On March 11th, the UN Security Council passed Resolution 2817 with a rare show of unity. 13 votes in favor, 0 against, with Russia and China abstaining. The resolution demands that Iran immediately cease its brazen missile and drone attacks. Well, it's been how long? It's the 29th, so it's been 18 days and it still hasn't happened. But on Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, and Jordan. It explicitly warns Tehran against any interference with shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, which is almost laughable at this point, a choke point for 20% of the world's global oil supply. What is stunning is the silence. The text is surgically silent regarding Israel, the primary target of Iran's war machine. This omission is staggering given that by March 17th, Israel endured 17 major ballistic missile salvos, including the heavy barrages that struck Rishon LeZion and Shoham. The UN celebrated its unity on the 11th, yet by remaining silent on Israel, they effectively signaled to Tehran that the Jewish state was fair game. Now, obviously, they're in a war, and so it's kind of tit for tat, but there is always a difference between what Israel does and what they are doing. Israel does targeted strikes against military infrastructure and military and political leaders. Iran will hit any military target they can hit, but they don't care if they target civilian areas, and they do that quite often. That's the difference. And nobody ever says anything about that when it happens to Israel. It doesn't. If Israel went in and blew up a neighborhood and it killed a lot of people, it makes the front page of every newspaper in the world, and then they have meetings at the UN, they have condemnations at the UN, et cetera, ad nauseum. And they won't do anything if it happens in Israel. So there's a total double standard here. Iran responded by launching one of its most aggressive strikes of the war only 5 days later. In diplomacy, what you don't say is often louder than what you do. The vote adopted 13-02, while the US, UK, and France voted yes to protect their Gulf allies. Russia and China abstained. A Russian attempt to include language condemning all parties, a veiled jab at Israel, failed to gain traction. The resolution invokes Chapter 7 language hinting at potential sanctions or military enforcement. It demands Iran halt its proxies and respect the sovereignty of its Arab neighbors. The omission, despite Iran's formal declaration of war against Israel on February 28, 2026, the Security Council refused to include the Jewish state in the protective scope of this resolution. So once again, you see this. We see it all the time. They will come out and every year after year, and they've been doing it for 50 years, they have 10 or 12 condemnations of Israel for various things. And the people on the council at the time will be North Korea, there'll be Iran, there'll be, the terrorist states in the world are sitting on these committees. So the UN is not a place where if I was Donald Trump, I'd say we're just cutting our losses and getting out. But that's not going to happen because we have to have diplomacy and et cetera. But it's pointless at this point. Okay. From Fox News. Support for Israel drops as Democrats turn against key U.S. ally. It's becoming terrible. It's becoming to the point where 8 years ago, when something happened against Israel, maybe it was 12 by now. It's been 8 to 12 years. Every single person in the Senate and House of Representatives would vote on Israel's behalf. And now we're down to about 53%, I think. It's unbelievable how quickly this has snowballed in the U.S. government. But some good news, and I think you probably heard it, but if you didn't, what's his name? Vance, the vice president, came out this past week, and he said they 100% are certain that Ilhan Omar committed immigration fraud. And so they will be targeting her. But they're not going to do that. That would be rich. That would be one of the richest things that we could experience in our nation if they actually do that and it goes through. But the problem is that they want to not just get her. And if they just get her, then they will get other things that go by the wayside. And they don't want to do that. They want to have an all-encompassing indictment. So, but it would be so rich to see her taken up before Congress, excommunicated as a congressperson, and deported from this country, that she stands and badmouths in the U.S. Congress openly. It'd be good to get rid of her. I can't wait for that day. And we'll hope that it happens. The results of the survey come amid sharp political debates among Democrats over support for Israel 2.5 years after the start of the war between Israelis and Hamas in Gaza. As I said, this all really began to take shape about that time, a little earlier, but the war against Gaza was really the defining moment. And it, to me, is ironic that a country, a sovereign country, would be attacked by its enemies. They would have women raped and killed and entire villages destroyed, and then the world comes against the people that were attacked. I just find that is the epitome of irony, but that is the way that the world thinks. It's okay for that to happen. And then when Israel responds, that's not okay. Okay. Just 32% of Americans view Israel positively. 32%. With 39% seeing the Jewish state in a negative light. That's a sea change from 3 years ago when Americans held a positive view of Israel by 47 to 34% margin. It's just tanking. Democrats were divided in 2023 with 34% viewing Israel positively and 35% negatively. Now the poll indicates just 13% of Democrats hold a positive view of Israel. Get yourself attacked and become the enemy, with 57% seeing it in a negative light. And independents went from 40-22 to 21-48. But Republican view of Israel have only declined slightly, which is still good news, from 63-12 positive negative in 2023 to 54-18 now. So it is going up in the Republican caucus, but we're still holding a vast majority. The survey, which was conducted as the U.S. and Israel began their strikes on Iran, also indicates Americans are now split on whether they are more sympathetic to Israel or the Palestinians. So it's not good, but this is exactly what was needed for the Bible to actually become fulfilled. And so we're seeing prophecy right before our eyes. Even though it's painful to see, I'm sorry to see it, it is what is needed. Putin is getting vastly rich off of this war. He is not going to not side with Iran, because as long as he's with Iran, he is selling them weapons, he's selling them oil, and the rest of the world is now again buying Russian oil because all the other countries are bottled up in the Strait of Hormuz. So you can almost taste the beginning of Gog Magog right now with this alliance with Russia. And I mean, it's been going on for a long time, but now it is solidifying it. Once again, Libya is not in play at this time. There's been no motion one way or another. And until that happens, Gog and Magog is not going to happen. But it could happen tomorrow. We just keep our eyes on Libya. If we see Libya start moving towards Russia in some major way, then we will know that it is possible. I'm not trying to, pick a date and say, well, it's going to be 2 weeks later or something, but it is the one thing that is really lacking from this picture. Got some news from Christianity, from LifeSite News. Catholic Church in Germany lost more than 500,000 members, had only 25 priestly ordinations in 2025. They've been doing this for years now. You're losing 500,000 people at a time, and pretty soon you're not going to have any people left. The Catholic Church in Germany lost 550,000 members in 2025, 25 priestly ordinations, around 307,000 people left, while 2,269 joined and 5,443 were readmitted. However, if one of the factors in deaths, the church shrank by 549,636 persons compared to the previous year. This represents a slight decrease from the previous year. Well, when you have people dying, they're not going to die a second time, so that would be understandable. When the church lost around 575,000. Most notably, only 25 priests were consecrated in all German dioceses, excluding religious orders, which are recorded separately. The number of baptisms has declined once again, with 109,000 recorded in 2025 compared to 116,000. Now remember, when they say baptisms, we are not talking about people accepting Jesus and going out and being baptized. We're talking about children being brought before them, and that is their ticket to eternal security. I was baptized in the Catholic Church, and so I'm going to heaven. That's what they believe. So that's what we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with saved believers. The same applies to Catholic weddings, which numbered 19,000, down from 22,000. The numbers remained stable for First Communions and for confirmation. The number of parishes fell from 9291 to 8997 due to structural reform prompted by fewer practicing believers. Well, that happens. You have less believers, you got to cut out churches, and then you change the diocese. Weekly church attendance was recorded at 6.8%. 6.8% of the people in the church actually go to church. I don't care what denomination you're in, that is terrible. That is and you know me, I never have ever asked somebody to come to church with me. I have when I was in other churches, but I've never said to somebody, why don't you come and attend here at this church? That is not my job. That's your job. But that's not true, because I had a friend that was very distressed, and I said, well, come to church on Sunday. It's the only time I've ever done that. So I did invite one person once that I've known since I was this big. But to have 6.8% of a church show up on any given week is terrible. A very slight increase from the previous year. The second largest institutional Christian community in the country, the Protestant Church in Germany, recorded 350,000 people who left in 2025. The Protestant Church had circa 17.4 million members by the end of 2025, while the Catholic Church had 19.2 million, around 23% of the total population. I won't give all the rest of the figures, but when you lose 500,000 people a year and you're at 20,000 people, it's not going to take long for that church to disappear. They have become irrelevant because they are not preaching the gospel. And when the Pope says the gospel, which the last Pope said it in almost every speech he gave, he'd say the gospel, the gospel, the gospel. I guarantee you, If one of you went to Rome and happened to meet the Pope and you'd said, can you tell me the gospel? He would not be able to tell you what the gospel is. He uses that term as a cliche. I guarantee you that he would not be able to tell you what the Bible says this is the gospel. If you do not know what the gospel is, I would like you to get your Bible and go to 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and then go to verses 3 and 4 and read it. That is the gospel. That is appropriated by belief in Jesus Christ and what he has done for you. And then in Ephesians 1, 13 and 14, it says that you are sealed with the Holy Spirit the moment you believe. That is a done deal with God. He is now covenanted with you. It is an eternal redemption. And 99% of the people in Christianity could not tell you that. It doesn't mean they're not saved, but they could not tell you that simple path to salvation, that God loved you enough to send his son into the world to pay for your sin debt, which is an infinite debt. One sin against an infinite creator is an infinite separation. And he is taking care of that through the giving of his son. So I would ask that you would remember that gospel and tell people about it. It is the only way to have reconciliation with the God that loves us enough to have done what he did. From K8, judge strikes down Arkansas's 10 Commandment classroom law for some districts. That makes no sense at all, but we'll just go on. We've got some news from the Mideast and Africa today. From the Times of Israel, senior UAE official says Iranian attacks will drive Gulf countries into Israeli arms. And that's right in the Bible as well. Go to Ezekiel 38, the Gog-Magog passage, and you'll see where certain countries that are now almost aligned or aligned with Israel are not coming against Israel in the Gog-Magog war. They stand back and they say, have you come to take a plunder? But they are not a part of that coalition. And therefore, the Bible is being vindicated. And this guy, I don't know if he even knows the Bible, but he is saying something that is absolutely true. Iran's full throttle attack on the Gulf states. You got to wonder how you could think as a little nation, it's a big nation, I don't mean it that way, but you're one nation with all of these other nations around you that are not hating you, but they also don't like you. You're just there with them, coexisting. And you start sending bombs at them who never did anything to you at all, how they're going to say, well, we appreciate that. We're going to side with you now. It doesn't make any sense. But whatever Iran has been thinking, it has been a catastrophic miscalculation on their part. Iran's full throttle attack will actually strengthen the Israeli role in the Gulf and will not diminish it, says Anwar Garash. He said during a CFR event, for countries that have relations with Israel, this is, this relationship, in my opinion, it'll be more strengthened. He continued, for countries that don't have, I expect that more channels will be open. Israel normalized relations with the UAE and Bahrain, another Gulf country, in 2020. Since the U.S. and Israel opened their aerial campaign against Iran on February 28th, which is 1 month and 1 day ago, Tehran has attacked airports, ports, oil facilities, commercial hubs, and also water treatment facilities, which I brought up before, which is more important than oil for those people, in the 6 Gulf states with missiles and drones, while also attacking Israel and disrupting shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, the artery carrying about 1/5 of global oil and underpinning Gulf economies. The attacks have reinforced Gulf fears that leaving Iran with any significant offensive weaponry or arms manufacturing capacity could embolden it to hold the region's energy lifeline hostage whenever tensions rise. Okay, Saudi Arabia confirmed this a couple days ago. They said, we do not want you to make a deal with them. They're saying this to our administration. We want you to finish this and get rid of this regime. Saudi Arabia, who just last year was starting to make atonement with these people back and forth. They're starting to make amends. And now Saudi Arabia says, no more. We want them taken out. However, they have not joined any attacks themselves. That is ending. I saw an article, I think it was this morning or yesterday morning, where that is ending. They now say they will join any coalition that is necessary to make what Saudi Arabia wanted happen. Let's see here. Gulf leaders deeply remain fearful of triggering a broader, uncontrollable conflagration. Garrosh said that his country could join an international effort led by the U.S. to ensure the safety and security of the Strait of Hormuz. The next day saw a major Israeli strike on the largest gas field in the world. The South Pars North Dome megafield supplies around 70% of Iran's domestic natural gas. Iran, which shares the massive field with energy giant Qatar, has been developing it since the late 1990s. Iran state TV said that in response to the strike, the Islamic Republic will be attacking oil and gas infrastructure in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. Iran specifically threatened Saudi Arabia's Samref refinery and Jubail petrochemical complex, the UAE's Al Hassan gas field, and the petrochemical plants and refinery in Qatar. So they're not making any friends. They're making greater enemies, and it's totally against any logic. But I would guess, and this is just me, they have Russian advisors in Iran constantly, and they're saying, do this, do this. Why? Because Russia does not care about Iran. Russia cares about Russia. And he is making all kinds of money that he otherwise was restricted from making because Donald Trump said we are, putting a hold on your oil. Okay. And so now we need the oil going around the world so the world can continue to function. And this guy up in the Kremlin knows this. And he's just like, yeah, bomb UAE today. That'll be a good one. I'm sure that's what's going on. From the Sweden Herald, Israel halts UNICEF aid shipments to Gaza over, remember we were talking about the UN a minute ago and how corrupt they are? Over nicotine smuggling. This is UN. Israel will stop emergency supplies from Egypt to Gaza being delivered via UNICEF. UNICEF, right? UNICEF. The reason is that shipments contain contraband. Israel, and they're starving in Gaza. They're starving. It's all Israel's fault. They've been stealing the food that's been going in and saying it's Israel's fault. And now they're caught sending in contraband because the people have got so much food that they can now afford to smoke and do all the things that normal people do, apparently. They were based on the discovery of attempts to smuggle nicotine products through the Kerem Shalom border crossing. The military authority Kogat, responsible for civilian affairs in the Palestinian territories, said the delivery ban is in effect until UNICEF has investigated the smuggling and issued an explanation. The products were smuggled in glass bottles hidden in boxes of hygiene products. A representative of the UN agency OCHA says the Kerem Shalom border crossing is currently the only possible point for humanitarian aid shipments to Gaza. Well, then why are you sending contraband through there and jeopardizing those poor Gazans? Because they don't care. They're making money selling them smokes. Zero Hedge, California Democrat, and nobody reports on this. The Sweden Herald. That's it. Zero Hedge, California Democrat lawmaker seeks to create 2 new Muslim state holidays. Gateway pundit, Irish President Catherine Connolly rewrites the story of St. Patrick. This is St. Patrick's Day a week ago. This is the leader of Ireland. She says it's about the resilience and courage of migrants.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. According to President Connolly, St. Patrick's story is all about how brave migrants are and how the story reminds us to be good global citizens. So that's what was on St. Patrick's mind. Yeah. Also notice that when she speaks, she never refers to Saint Patrick as a saint and never describes why he is a saint. The story of Patrick's life, this is her quote, the story of Patrick's life serves as a reminder of the resilience and courage of migrants, the invaluable contributions that they have made and continue to make, and to the countries they now call home, sometimes even in the face of great adversity. So she's slamming her people for not wanting these people coming in and pulling explosive vest lines. That's what she's doing. Patrick's story speaks not only to the Ireland of the 5th century, but to the millions still subjugated to trafficking, forced labor, and displacement today. As we recall the life of Patrick, we invoke his spirit and acknowledge our shared responsibilities as global citizens. We stand in solidarity with those who find themselves in vulnerable and dangerous circumstances. When you leave a border open and you've got a wide gulf of ocean between you and the countries that are departing, and they have little boats that have no engines and they have no stability, and you put 800 people onto those boats, you are going to have 800 people drown. And they have lost thousands and thousands and thousands of people. These are vulnerable and dangerous circumstances. And she's ignoring those, and she's saying that the people living in Africa are in vulnerable and dangerous circumstances. No, they're living there. That's their lives. And now we are putting them in jeopardy to bring them over so they can do nothing in our country and get benefits. That's her idea of fairness. Patrick's story invites us to respond with hospitality and kindness to those suffering in the consequences of war and displacement, those fleeing their countries because of persecution or violence. If that was true, last week's article would not have been true, where 96% of all of the people coming to these countries are males that are of the age of 18 to 26, right in that area, all of them. There are no people that are coming, women and children that are being brought. They're all people that are damaging their society. Mongolia, Astana Times, Kazakhstan, Mongolia signed export deals worth over $60 million. This is a big one for Mongolia, folks. We view Mongolia as a promising direction for expanding non-resource exports. The high share of finished products and supplies and the interest of business confirm that we no longer are dealing with a trial market, but with an emerging, stable trade direction. Bilateral trade between Kazakhstan and Mongolia, two titans in the industrial world, tripled in 2025, with more than 90% of exports consisting of non-resource finished products, including food and industrial goods. Kazakhstan's growing role as a transit hub is also expected to deepen cooperation. The country offers Mongolia alternative export routes, helping reduce delivery times and expand access to markets across the EAEU, the Caucasus, Turkey, and the EU. I mean, Mongolia's taken over the world and nobody's paying attention. This is important. You need to make notes and you need to let your neighbors know. Daniel 12 Technology today, Mail Online. Time for change? Time for change? Scientists create a clock so precise it could redefine the second. It's a strontium optical lattice clock. It's one of the most accurate timepieces ever made, capable of measuring seconds to 19 decimal places. Wow. To put that into context, if the clock ran for 30 billion years, more than twice the current age of the universe, which I would dispute, but we'll go with it, it would only be off by around 1 second. In 30 billion years. This degree of precision has been possible thanks to significant advances in technology provided by Charlie Garrett of Sarasota. Oh, no, it doesn't say that. And represents a major breakthrough in optical clock technology. What's more, it signifies a major step towards the goal of changing the official definition of a second within the next decade or so. Beyond redefining the second, the clock could play a crucial role in various fields, according to the researchers. For example, it could aid the search for dark matter and even for specific measurements of Earth's gravitational field. The scientists explained, the new achievement provides a viable path for developing portable and space-based optical clocks. It could support future applications, including tests of fundamental physical laws, next-generation satellite navigation systems, and the establishment of a unified, ultra-precise global time standard. So all of those things are possible because of this new clock. That's rather incredible. We got the Revelation plagues of the week, times of Israel. Foot and mouth disease outbreak closes 2 nature reserves to the public. Where is that? Anybody? With 2 wild gazelles already dead, Nature and Parks Authority, Agriculture Ministry draw a line around northern Israel region, hit by a new strain of viral infection. That's serious for such a little country. They've got cows there. This could be bad, so we'll keep an eye on that. DNYUZ, an unprecedented outbreak of meningitis raises alarm in Britain. Zero Hedge, Kansas introduces Medical Freedom Act. It would impose $50,000 fines for vaccine mandates or medical discrimination. Good job, Kansas. From the Superior Word News Services, first case of deadly monkey virus is confirmed in New York City. Why did I have to report that? Because everybody else is calling it something other than what it is, because it is a gay disease. And so they said, we can't call it monkeypox anymore, and they made up a new name for it. Gateway pundit Javier Milei's Argentina follows the U.S. and officially leaves the World Health Organization. Good. Senator Rick Scott calls for review of CCP involvement in U.S. clinical trials and drug approvals. I think that's probably overdue, but good job, Rick Scott. From Watchers, Florida reports U.S. dollar $3.17 billion in agricultural losses after the 2026 freeze. $3 billion of losses. Morality from the Post-Millennial, LA County hospice fraud. 89 providers registered to the same building. Yes, and not only that, 89 in one building. These are, hospice providers, 89 in one building. Now listen to this, about 500 hospices are operating within a 3-mile radius, with 137 of them located on Van Nuys Boulevard alone. They have 137 hospice facilities on one boulevard in Van Nuys. Whatever, I don't care. Listen, I'm not out in California. I don't care how they speak of it there. It's like asking me to say Ecuador. I'm sorry. However I'm saying it wrong, I don't care. And what is it? Oregon and Oregon, okay? Whatever. Breitbart, California, you get Sarasota wrong, and I'll get you, okay? Breitbart, everybody gets the next one up wrong, though, don't they, where you live? Everybody says Bradenton. There's no ing in there, but everybody calls it Bradenton. It's like you're running up there, Bradenton, okay. Breitbart, California, pedophile sentenced to 355 years is to be released under the law signed by Gavin Newsom. Post-millennial, VA sheriff refuses to honor ICE detainer for illegal alien arrested for groping 9 girls at Fairfax High School where he was a student. They're not going to hand him over to the government. They want him in that school system. Breitbart, Canadian Drag Queen Theatre announces star-studded drag for Palestinian fundraiser. What I hope they do is they get on a plane and they fly to Israel and then go over the border and do their drag queen stuff in Gaza. We'll see how long that lasts. Life News, British House of Lords votes for abortions up to birth. Got some other news. I call this vital resources. From Mail Online, Russia suffers deadliest day this year with 1,700 troops killed or wounded as Putin pushes more soldiers into the meat grinder missions. They are losing people so quickly now. And I think I may include an article next week. I saw it yesterday explaining how this is happening. Ukraine's general staff announced that it killed or wounded 1,710 troops on March 17th, while destroying 230 vehicles and fuel tankers and 29 artillery systems. The unmanned systems force, with overseas Kiev's drone attacks, was responsible for killing or wounding 900 Russian soldiers in a day and a half after Putin's forces attempted to surge forward on the Zaporizhzhia front in the recent months of the conflict. Russia's average daily fatalities have mostly ranged between 700 and 900 troops per day. Fatalities, almost 1,000 human beings a day being killed. Its single deadliest day since February 2022 invasion of Ukraine is understood to have been December 20th, 2024, when Moscow lost 2,200 soldiers in 24 hours of fighting. U.S. brokered negotiations between Moscow and Kiev to end the 4-year war have largely halted as the White House has shifted its attention to the war with Iran. Vital resources, human beings being destroyed. Zero Hedge. North Korean operatives infiltrating U.S. companies through remote tech jobs, vital resources. Now, I've got a solution to this, if I remember to tell you at the end of the article. It's so simple, but nobody will do it. North Korean operatives are quietly working inside the United States companies through remote tech jobs, funneling millions of dollars back to Pyongyang and potentially gaining access to sensitive corporate systems, according to investigators and U.S. officials. The scheme relies on workers posing as American job applicants using stolen identities and fake credentials to secure high-paying remote roles, especially in software development and AI. Authorities warn the tactic allows the regime to bypass international sanctions while embedding operatives inside Western companies. So they're over in Korea, and they're saying they're Americans because they've stolen Americans' identities, which is easy to do, and then they apply for jobs and they're making $300,000-$400,000 a year, and all of that's going back to fund Kim Jong-un. Okay, an investigation found that suspected North Korean IT workers applied to thousands of jobs using fabricated resumes. This is your resume, I presume. Anyway, and multiple online personas. Once hired, the workers often operate from overseas, frequently from China, while U.S.-based facilitators help maintain the illusion that they are located domestically. So they set up accounts, the money goes into the account, and then they just take that money and ship it over to somebody else somewhere else. These facilitators run so-called laptop farms, where the company-issued computers are physically kept in the U.S. and remotely accessed by workers abroad. So they're working through this farm, going to the company, getting this money, and then it's going right back to Uncle Kim. Investigators say the workers also coordinate application interviews and references with tightly organized teams to increase their chances of being hired. Authorities say the salaries, sometimes exceeding $300,000 per worker, are largely sent back to the regime of Kim Jong-un, helping fund North Korea's weapons and ballistic missiles programs. U.S. officials estimate the operation now affects hundreds of companies and generates hundreds of millions of dollars annually for the North Korean government. Investigators say some operatives hold multiple jobs simultaneously, applying to dozens of roles a day and coordinating through the organized networks that track applications and interviews. In some cases, the workers are accused of stealing proprietary data, cryptocurrency, or sensitive technology while employed. Officials warned that even after the workers are discovered and fired, they may leave behind hidden system access that could later be exploited, raising broader national security concerns. Here's the way you at least get them out of there. Every employee in the company must submit a photo of yourself outside on this day with a paper of today. Everything, you make a scenario where they must do it, live stream, and have them say, this is where I am. If they don't show up for that, you fire them. It'd be very easy to solve this. Every employee that works online in America must do this and have it all set up in one day. Everybody must do it. And if they don't show up, I'm sorry, you didn't show up for this. You are to be terminated. If they can't prove that they are not in another country, then they need to be gotten rid of. Simple, but they're not going to do that. From the Department of Interior.gov. If you want all of the government stuff that gets published every day, whether it's from the White House or the Interior or whatever, go to my website, thecgreport.com, and I try to list them all right up in the top news every day, whether it's from transportation or, if something important comes out, I try to put it up at the hot news. So just go there, thecgreport.com, and that way I don't have to read all of them because there's a lot, but it's important information. This one was fun. Interior generates over $163 million from National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska oil and gas lease sales. What is this called? Vital resources. Biden cut everything off. Everything. And that is all undone now. The reserve was created to support our nation's energy needs. That's why they created it. And this successful sale demonstrates what's possible when we align responsible development with that original purpose. Revenues from these leases will help bolster local communities, create good-paying jobs, and ensure that Alaska continues to be a cornerstone of America's domestic energy production. The people in Alaska get money back from their government for having all of these things. It's a win-win for the state of Alaska. They want it, and then the left in the nation takes over and they say, no, you can't have that. This is all not to be touched by these companies. And so nothing happens out there. It's just nothing doing nothing. And we've got these wells that have been in use for 30, 40, and 50 years without any trouble. And yet, oh no, it's too dangerous. It's just damaging. It is just an intentional way of destroying our nation. The BLM offered 625 tracts across approximately 5.5 million acres for bid. In response, 11 companies submitted bids on 187 tracts covering 1,334,967 acres. Since January 2025, Donald Trump, right? The BLM has been expeditiously implementing direction to unlock the reserve's energy potential. Actions taken include the rescission of the 2024 rule that restricted leasing and development in the reserve, withdrawal of 3 policy documents that sought to unnecessarily expand limitations in special areas, and approval of an updated integrated activity plan that reopens nearly 82% of the reserve to oil and gas leasing. Okay, this would never have happened with any other president ever in the history of the nation except Donald Trump. It would never happen again because they wouldn't be willing to try. They would be, we don't want to offend anybody. He doesn't care about offense. What was the show that he used to sit in? The Apprentice. If you didn't get his approach to life from watching The Apprentice, then that's your own problem, okay? Because he was very clear about his approach to life when he was on The Apprentice. That he's not going to change. He is a man that has said something in 1976. It was recorded in his book or in an interview, and today he is saying exactly the same thing. You know what you're going to get when you get Donald Trump. Now, you might not know everything you're going to get because, as I said a week ago, he lies in bed at night and he only sleeps 4 hours a day, and his wheels are like this when he's asleep. What can I do tomorrow to make everybody go crazy? You know what you're getting with him. Zero hedge. Vital resources. Armor-piercing ammo metal up 557% as China chokes supply, war demand surges. Tungsten, used in missiles, tank rounds, armor-piercing ammo, and some small-caliber munitions. I think I have some right now. Munitions has surged in price over the last year as China curbed exports and global supplies tightened. This is a major concern as multi-front conflicts from the Mideast to Eastern Europe are depleting interceptor missile supplies. Tungsten prices have surged to $2,250 per metric ton this month, up 557% since Beijing added certain tungsten products to its export control list in February. Remember who went into the office in January of last year? In February last year. The problem with rare earth metals is that China dominates the global market. It controls roughly 79% of global tungsten mined output, which Western companies rely on heavily because we sold all of our technology to China. Manufacturers have been searching for alternative supplies since China significantly tightened export controls last year. Chinese shipments of restricted tungsten products were down about 40% last year. The tungsten squeeze highlights why the Trump admin has been furiously rewriting global supply chains away from China, especially with the push to build out domestic rare earth supply chains critical for military and semiconductor industries. The industrial base is desperate for material, said Almonte Industries CEO Louis Black, whose firm is set to begin commercial production at the site of an idled mine in South Korea, and is seeking to develop the first U.S. tungsten mine in a decade because we closed it because China will sell it to us cheaper. We've never been in a situation where the market is determining the price, Black said, so we really don't know where it's going to settle. 1 year ago, Black warned his customer base was in a state of disbelief amid China's tightening of global supplies. It's the warning shot because we cannot exist without it. Our economy, manufacturing, defense, everything is so dependent on it. And yet Russia, China, and North Korea have 90% of the output. China 76%, add in North Korea and Russia, you're at 90% of all output because we closed because they can make it for $5 a ton and we can make it for $7 and it's just not worth our time. And so they unwisely closed all of these rare earth mines and tungsten mines and all these other things saying, China will take care of us. Military-related tungsten demand is set to surge this year because the metal is used in missile components and other weaponry deployed in the conflict zones of the Mideast and the eastern Ukraine. Major U.S. defense companies have already signaled to the Trump admin that missile production will quadruple, putting even more pressure on critical metals. Vital resources. From the AP, U.S. Energy Secretary directs oil company to restore operations off California. Okay, just a day ago, I didn't have time to put it in, so I'll read this and tell you about that so you can think about why I'm reading this. California did what in response to this? Anybody? They directed that this place be reopened, restore operations for oil because the world needs oil off California. What did California do? Sue, thank you. Energy Secretary Chris Wright directed a Texas-based oil and gas company to restore operations in waters off the Southern California that were damaged by a 2015 oil spill, invoking the Defense Production Act. In other words, we take precedent over you because we are the federal government and we need this right now. Restoring Sable Offshore Corporation, Santa Ynez, I know it's Inez or something, but I'm not Mexican, unit and pipeline off Santa Barbara aims to address supply disruption risks. We've got a Mexican watching right now, and I know he is, so Jose, no offense. The unit includes 3 rigs in federal waters, offshore and onshore pipelines, and the Los Flores Canyon processing facility. The facility can produce about 50,000 barrels of oil per day and would replace nearly 1.5 million barrels of foreign crude each month. The Trump admin remains committed to putting all Americans and their energy security first, Wright said in the statement. Unfortunately, some state leaders have not adhered to those same principles. We saw that a week ago where California now needs to have oil shipped to the Bahamas and then from the Bahamas back over to California so that they can buy it because of the Jones Act, which, by the way, was suspended by Trump last week. I don't know if you all saw that, but he did. Okay, so there you go. Things are happening because we have a president that makes things happen. Thank you. They would have potentially disastrous consequences, not just for their residents, but also our national security. Today's order will strengthen America's oil supply and restore a pipeline system vital to our national security and defense. It's the pipeline system that California sued about yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever that was. Pipeline system, because it doesn't help to take oil out of the ground if you can't send it anywhere. Yeah. Ensuring that the West Coast military installations have the reliable energy critical to military readiness. On the first day of his second term, President Trump signed an executive order to reverse Biden's ban on future offshore oil drilling on the East and West Coast. If you read his executive orders, he always says how he maligns the Biden administration. He excoriates them for how they have treated the United States of America. Read those and see what he says. He does it in a good way. It's an executive order, and it's not like when he speaks to the press and it's very demeaning, but he says it in a way that makes it absolutely certain that they have damaged the United States of America in this way, this way, and this way. They're always very carefully worded. I posted a couple yesterday, which are now down in the regular news section. On the first day of his second, I read that a federal court later struck down Biden's order to withdraw 625 million acres of federal waters from oil development. Oh, we can't be drilling out in federal waters. We've been doing it for 75 years, and we've had one spill or something. So you get your Dove, and you squirt it on the chickens, and you wipe them off, and they go out, and they're fine. Okay? Zero hedge. Mamdani proposes massive estate tax exemption, which is cut from $7 million to $750,000. You can't even get a small little apartment for $750,000 in New York, among other tax increases. Mamdani is urging Albany to consider a sweeping overhaul of New York's estate tax, proposing to sharply lower the exemption threshold and dramatically increase the top rate on large inheritances. His plan would cut the exemption from more than $7 million. The government, I think the U.S. government right now is $11 million. And then New York says $7 million. So they tax anything above $7 million. They want to go down to $750,000, which means that if you die and you're worth $1 million and your apartment was $900,000 of it, they're going to tax it so that the children cannot own that apartment. That's what that means. While boosting the highest tax rate from 16% to 50%. Wow. This is from Based Jessica on Twitter. Based Jessica. New York governor begs wealthy taxpayers to stop leaving the state. Yeah, I need people who are of high net worth to support the generous social programs that we want to have in our state. Now, there are some patriotic millionaires who stepped up. Okay, cut me checks if you want to be supportive, but maybe the first step should be to go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home. This is her words. She, a year ago, said, let them go. We don't need them. We don't need them. Now she's begging them to come back. You ought to see some of the responses from those people. I have to look at the fact that we are in competition with the other states who have less tax. Listen to her thinking. Listen to her thinking here. We are in competition with other states who have less of a tax burden on their corporations and individuals. She can't figure out that she is the problem in the state. She can't figure this out. So she wants people to come back and pay more because she is raping these companies that are now leaving. And I would say remote work changed everything. No, Democrat policies, they cannot see it. It's cognitive dissonance, and they cannot see that they are damaging themselves. There were people who could only work in an office in Manhattan and work in New York State. Well, we opened up Florida, and we were healthier than any other state in the nation. We became the standard for other states saying, we're going to stop this nonsense. They're still wearing masks in New York. And you know how I know? Because they're visiting right now, and they're wearing masks. And they were captives to our state. This is her. They were captives to our state. She admits it. They were going to stay. We saw that's not the case. Wall Street businesses looking at Texas, they're not going there because they have a nicer governor. They're going there because of the tax rate. And she can't understand it. And she's saying, please come back.
I'm so nice. That's what she's saying.
We have them captive. Her words, we had them captive. And then we found out we don't. UPI, Florida legislature passes new voter ID law similar to the SAVE Act.
Yes.
Good. Okay, who said it? And are you going to get that? You're not going to get this, but I just, it's good, and you can try to guess. And for the tourist who really wants to get away from it all, safaris in Vietnam. Yeah, that was Newsweek predicting popular holidays for the late 1960s. Yeah, that didn't work so well.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, I got a double Lesric for you. I think the first is less and the second is Kathy, but it's a Catholic if it is, but it's one way or the other. New York's governor should just get a clue. From her taxes, the most wealthy flew. Hochul thinks they should stay, and big checks they will pay. But her thinking is wrong. This is true. And then the other one says, just how stupid can New Yorkers be? Are they going to Boston for tea? Do they want broken backs on account of her tax? Or do they prefer real liberty? Okay, I got two ironies. Yes, Mail Online. Karen, we all know what a Karen is nowadays. A Karen called Karen was caught on camera damaging Tesla Cybertruck with a nail-studded board, cops say. So the Karen was Karen, and now she's in the pokey. Mail Online. This is more common than you would expect. She just got caught at it. Mail Online. Beauty influencer loses a staggering 140,000 followers after her filter glitch reveals her true face. Such is the world in which we live. So from Sarasota, Florida to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, I'm Charlie Garrett, and that is your CG Prophecy Report for the week.